Some choices change everything. There are moments in life that define everything that comes after. Turning points you never see coming, moments that shift the ground beneath you when you least expect it. That night, I wasn't prepared. It was late. The kind of late when the house should have been wrapped in silence, when everyone should have been deep in sleep. But something felt off. The air carried a strange weight, an unshakable tension I couldn't quite place. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind drifting restlessly between thoughts. Then came a sound, soft, almost too faint to notice but deliberate. Froze. My breath hitched in my throat. This wasn't the usual creaks of an old house settling. This was different. I sat up slowly, straining to hear past the pounding in my chest. The hallway outside my room lay in darkness, the dim glow of the nightlight barely touching the edges of my door. And then a shadow moved. A chill crawled down my spine. My fingers tightened around the blanket. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, just my imagination playing tricks on me. But my body knew better. My pulse had already quickened, my breathing shallow and uneven. I reached for my phone, my hands unsteady. The screen lit up, casting a bluish glow across my room. It was past midnight, too late for anyone else to be awake. Then came a knock. Hesitant, just outside my door. My heart slammed against my ribs. I hesitated, every nerve screaming at me to stay still. Are you awake? My stepfather's voice. I swallowed, my throat dry. Yeah, was. Can I come in? Something felt wrong. He never came to my room this late. I inhaled slowly. Yeah, sure. The door creaked open, and there he stood. His expression was unreadable, his posture tense. He hadn't changed for bed, still wearing the clothes from earlier, like he'd been sitting up, waiting. I shifted, pulling the blanket tighter around me. What's going on? He hesitated. I need to talk to you. A strange unease curled in my stomach. Okay. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. The latch clicked, a sound too loud, too final. He sat on the edge of my bed, hands clasped together, staring at the floor. There's something I need to tell you. My pulse pounded. What is it? He exhaled, rubbing a hand over his face. It's not easy to say. I forced myself to stay still, to keep my breath steady. Just say it. His eyes lifted to mine, and something in them made my stomach drop. Regret, hesitation, and something else. I've been keeping a secret. My fingers curled into the blanket. What kind of secret? His jaw tightened. The kind that changes everything. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. I swallowed. What are you talking about? He hesitated, then said, I made a mistake. A long time ago. A cold, sinking feeling settled in my chest. What kind of mistake? His hands clenched. One I never thought would come back to haunt me. My breath quickened. My heart hammered. Just tell me. He drew in a slow breath. I got involved with someone I shouldn't have. The words hit like a slap. I stared at him, my thoughts scrambling to keep up. What do you mean? His gaze dropped. Before I met your mother. I waited, every muscle in my body tensed. His voice barely above a whisper. And she just found me. A cold wave of dread crashed over me. Blinked. Who? His lips parted slightly. His throat working as if forcing out the words. Someone I walked away from. Someone I thought I'd never see again. My chest tightened. And what does she want? His jaw clenched. She wants the truth. The truth. I swallowed hard. My mind spun. And what is the truth? He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. The truth is, I had a child with her. The world tilted. I couldn't breathe. I stared at him, waiting for him to take it back, to say it was a mistake, that I'd misunderstood. But his face, the way he looked at me, told me everything I needed to know. Shaky breath escaped me. Oh, I have a sibling. He nodded slowly. His gaze was heavy with something I couldn't name. A brother. Brother. Someone who had existed this whole time. Someone I had never known. I pressed a hand to my temple, trying to process it. Why are you telling me this now? He hesitated, then said, because he wants to meet you. My pulse stuttered. I swallowed hard. And, you're asking me what? His voice was quiet. I'm asking you to help me decide what to do. I sucked in a slow breath. Does Mom know? A muscle in his jaw twitched. No. My stomach dropped. You never told her. His expression darkened. I was going to. Then time passed. Then. I didn't. A bitter laugh escaped me. And now he just shows up. He nodded. I don't know how he found me. But he did. I stared at him, my thoughts spinning. There was no easy answer. No simple choice. Whatever I decided, nothing would ever be the same again. The weight of his words settled over me like a heavy fog, thick and suffocating. My stepfather had a child. Son. A secret buried so deep, even my mother didn't know. Now, that secret was clawing its way to the surface. Choice that changed everything. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. The walls of my room felt like they were closing in, pressing against me. My pulse pounded in my ears. I swallowed hard. And you're asking me to help you decide? He nodded, his gaze steady but filled with turmoil. I don't know what to do. If I tell your mother, it will destroy her. But if I don't, I'll be lying to her again. My jaw clenched, fingers tightening around the blanket. Why now? After all these years? His throat bobbed as he swallowed. He found me. He says he's been looking for me for a long time. A knot twisted in my stomach. And what do you want? His lips pressed together, hands clasped in front of him. I don't know. Part of me wants to leave it buried. But he's my son. I owe him something. I exhaled, my thoughts spiraling. Does he know about Mom? About me? His expression darkened. Yes. I forced down the lump in my throat. What does he want? To meet you. The words hit like a jolt to my system. My breath caught. Me. He nodded. He said, if I won't acknowledge him, maybe you will. I stared at him, my pulse racing. My whole life, I had believed I was an only child. And now, out of nowhere, I had a brother. Stranger. A person who had spent his life searching for the man sitting in front of me. I let out a shaky breath. And if I say no? His jaw tensed. Then, he said he'll tell your mother himself. A cold wave of dread crashed over me. So it's a threat. He hesitated. I don't think he means it that way. He just doesn't want to be ignored. I ran a hand over my face, trying to steady my thoughts. Where is he? He's here. In town. My stomach twisted harder. So you already spoke to him? Yes, briefly. He sighed, leaning back and rubbing his temples. He doesn't hate me. He just wants to understand. I swallowed hard. What did you tell him? That I needed time. His eyes lifted to meet mine. That I needed to talk to you first. A strange lump formed in my throat. And, what if I don't want to meet him? His shoulders sagged slightly. Then you don't have to. But I think you should. I stared at him, my heart hammering in my chest. What was I supposed to do? This wasn't my mistake. This wasn't my past. And yet, somehow, it had become my problem. I took a slow, measured breath. Where does he want to meet? His eyes flickered with something unreadable. Tomorrow. A diner downtown. I hesitated, then exhaled sharply. Fine. He straightened slightly. You'll go. I nodded, though uncertainty churned inside me. But you're coming with me. His lips pressed together. After a long moment he nodded. Okay. The next day the diner was quiet, the kind of place where the air smelled like fresh coffee and worn leather seats. My stepfather and I walked inside, the soft jingle of the bell above the door announcing our arrival. And then I saw him, sitting at a booth near the window. I wasn't sure what I had expected, but when our eyes met, something inside me shifted. He looked like him, like my stepfather. The same sharp jawline, the same intense stare. But there was something else. Something that didn't belong to my stepfather. Something foreign. He stood as we approached, his movements stiff, uncertain. My stepfather inhaled deeply. "This is my daughter." The word sent another shiver through me. Daughter. For the first time, I wasn't just someone's stepdaughter. I was someone's sister. The man in front of me studied me, his eyes flickering with emotions I couldn't name. "I'm James." His voice was steady, controlled. But beneath it there was something else. Wait. A history I didn't know. I swallowed hard. "I know." A small smile tugged at his lips. "I wasn't sure if you'd actually come." I glanced at my stepfather. Neither was I. Silence stretched between us. "I didn't come here to ruin your life," James said softly. "I just wanted to see where I came from. To understand." I studied him carefully. He didn't look angry. He didn't even look bitter. Just tired. I let out a slow breath. "What do you want from me?" He hesitated, then, "Nothing. Just a chance." A lump formed in my throat. I looked at my stepfather, the man who had created this mess, who had made his choices long ago. But now the choice was mine. Could walk away. Pretend this never happened. Or I could stay. I took a breath, my heart pounding. And finally, I sat down.